personalized approach, striking the right balance between human interaction and technology. And for the same, I would like to invite Mr. Gaurav Sisodia, who is the Head of Learning and Development at Paytm. He is currently involved in strategic role leading L&D for Paytm. He holds 15 plus years of experience in the industry with key focused areas on annual training budget, LMS, HRMS, ROI, ID, coaching and leadership, HR engagement, and organizational development. Please welcome Mr. Gaurav with a huge round of applause.
Very good afternoon, everybody, and I really thank the entire team of UBS Forums and Tesseract eventually for organizing such a wonderful event where I personally got to meet somebody, one of my colleagues, 15 years back. Was the first time when I met him. So yeah, it's wonderful, seeing all of us together, and lot of us remember each other just by face, and we're just trying to recall. I've met somebody, somewhere down the line, 5 years back, 6 years back, somewhere in the career. But I'm really blessed that I've got a topic which is pretty close to all of us, and there's a mystery surrounding this particular topic. Before pandemic, we all were talking about, how to make digital learning happen, okay, and how to create less of impact or less of human intervention eventually. Post-pandemic, suddenly it all changed, and now we're talking about how to bring in that human touch. Yeah. So we are just circling around. This is how I think, and this is a pretty close topic that I've picked up. And if you could see the background image that I've picked up, where there's a man who's trying to man a baby and trying to manage the whole office work as well. Well, this is quite personal to us as well. I'll start with this note because being a single parent, post-COVID, we started off with a small initiative to help all the single fathers. Since a lot of us were unfortunate to lose their wives, and that's how we started off, with this initiative. And I had experience of around 10 years into this domain, so that's how we kicked off. So, not making you guys wait more, let's just move on to the subject. Before pandemic, this is where we were, right? So, the HR was the driver of all the learning initiatives. We had, classroom, pretty much running the entire trainings in classroom environment. There were a lot of static content which was there. And then the sessions were pretty long altogether, right? And then, we moved on in terms of the entire learning content and the architecture post-COVID. It completely changed for us. So we eventually also had the entire learning structure, which was quite rigid, annual training plans, annual budgets and everything. That all changed as soon as COVID came into our lives. Then right after that, how was our life eventually after COVID? So I'll put up a small image in the screen, and I would like, since we've just done with the lunch, I would like all of us to respond to it. If you'll pick up option 1, then please raise just one hand. And if you'll pick up option 2, then please raise both of your hands. Can we do that? Yeah, all right, okay. So post-COVID, which option are you going to pick, right? Option 1 or 2 of learning post-COVID? Two, right? Okay. Which one are you going to enjoy more? 2, right? But where we all are stuck at? It's such an irony, isn't it? We all know what we want, right? Isn't it? And where we're stuck at is something that we don't want. Isn't it? But it's eventually, we are being, put up in a space, in an environment where without going with option 1, we won't be able to survive, isn't it? Yeah, do we agree? Yeah, all right, okay. So what we did was, constantly right after COVID, and I'm sure, the value of training actually increased after COVID. The first quarter, I remember, everybody from the business was like, Gaurav, where's the training? Where's the training? Where's the training, guys? Guys, where's the training? Did that happen to all of us, right? I can see a few smiles here and there, right? This is what happened to all of us, isn't it? So how to strike the right balance, is a question. Now, though we all have picked up option 2, but option 2 comes at a price now. So what's that price that we have to pay? So first, I'll have to check how far is my office from my home. Second, I have to check, eventually whether my office requires me to be there or not. That's a mandate, right? And third, I have to check if I'm single eventually, whether I'll get somebody to get trained in such a fashion or not. Eventually, and I have to look at my whole family setup because these 2 years, I have a baby to manage, I have a home to manage, I have a work to manage, sort of a thing, isn't it? We all have our parents as well at home, isn't it? So our work and our office work eventually, our office work at home is sort of now integrated. My maid knows what time the meeting starts. My mom knows what time she doesn't have to come and shout and yell at me. My kids know eventually, now 5 to 6, really sorry, he's not there, right? He's not going to be coming for play. So there are a lot of changes, we sort of integrated each other. But when it comes to the work environment, how we are placing and creating the right balance is a question. So something that I've picked up, over the course of time, and I'll place it, in a very simplistic manner. Post-pandemic, HR became an enabler instead of driver. Our e-learning, dynamic content, everything came into the picture. I heard everybody talking about micro-learning and gamified content. And then, classroom to virtual classrooms and eventually agile learning structure. Now everybody is on agile mode, right? Constantly we're changing, and then redeveloping, reprogressing, then changing, reevaluating. Earlier it used to happen in an annual cycle, isn't it? And now it's like, every month, every week, that's how we are progressing all together. So what's the right kind of balance that we've created, okay? So any initialization of any learning program which is digitalized into a digitalized mode, I've started keeping human as an intervention at the stage 1. Why? Because this changes a lot, Somebody sitting on a mobile phone and then saying, okay, this is the course assigned to me, these are the, my learnings, these are the modules that I need to cover, this is the intervention, these many hours of learning, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But then if there's a human that comes into the picture, and that person conveys, and specifically if that person is my mentor from the business, and he says, you know what, Gaurav, these are the 4 key things, if you learn these, you're going to be cracking the pot, you'll be there in no time. And I'm like, okay, let me get on to it. So the sincereness, that accountability increases immediately. So that's how we need to blend the human impact. And then self-learning with human feedback. Our systems are talking, everybody's talking. System will give me the feedback, what is my progress, my stars, gamification, where I stand in the leaderboard, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's very important that my mentor just writes 2 lines there, right? And says, hey, Gaurav, you're progressing well. I see you've completed 3 chapters. I see you must have learned by now how to deal with this. Let's do this as well. That's it. That's all the intervention I require. And I'll be like, oh, okay, there's somebody monitoring, somebody knows that I'm there. And third is opportunity to reflect my learning. Earlier it used to happen so naturally. हम लोग classroom में होते थे, कोई भी classroom intervention में कोई भी speaker, trainer, or probably my business manager used to be in the same meeting, same building. We used to interact and then we used to deliver something or the other, And we used to be so excited, hey, I've just picked up this. I think we can implement this in our teams, in our business, in our learning architectures, so on and so forth, or even to my national business colleagues. But now, once we're sitting at home completing a particular course, where's the opportunity to reflect it? Who's observing us? Isn't it? So probably including the third step, which is giving us opportunity to reflect. And I'm talking about at a global scale, not at Indian scale, at global scale. If you give that, and we've started doing it, it has made tremendous difference in terms of people's life and their learning cycles and how early they can deliver as per the business deliverables. And one aspect that I'm still trying to figure out, and a lot of us are still trying to figure out, is mentorship. Over the past 1.5 decades of working into training domain, I've met a lot of professionals, we work together, but still we all are in this room. Isn't it that we are still trying to figure out how to create a perfect mentor system into an organization? Isn't it? Isn't that a challenge? Guys, are you with me? Yeah, all right, okay. So it becomes really important. See, there's so much of learning that's happening without HR or training knowing. I recently met a guy probably, in West Delhi where I stay, in Dwarka, and these guys were, recently joined Oracle. And I met these guys and I was sitting there, talking to them. They're like, this is my first day, tonight is starting, we are at a night shift all together. And, we've gone through our learning modules and everything, fantastic. And with one of the guys, I was sitting late with a cup of coffee. And I saw him, he just called his colleague and asked, अच्छा एक बार बता यार, ये ठीक है मॉड्यूल्स वगैरह तो सब हो गए, एक बार बता वो बिजनेस जो देना था वो किधर से आएगा डेटा. So the guy is learning from where? Within the team, from the mentor, it's all informal learning that's happening, isn't it, guys? Yeah, no matter how much as training professionals, we try and fix the boundaries, and we're like, the guy should learn everything from us. He should go on the floor, he should go on a job, absolutely ready. But still the guy would pick up the phone and call up one of the colleagues or senior person within the team, isn't it? Yeah. So we have to include these parameters within our training domain. And once we do that, we'll be able to create the right kind of balance. So who decides the trainings? My mentor decides the trainings. Who's my mentor? My mentor from the business, from the team that I'm going to join. He's the one who will pick up the agenda. But that agenda would obviously, at a global scale, is already been designed and decided by us. So he gets to pick and choose what he gets to, probably what he gets to throw to a new employee altogether. And this has worked wonders. The learning cycle has increased. The guys have started, in terms of the pace of entire learning, completion of course, engagement, everything sort of started shooting up. And there were less queries, less frustration that used to come up. So this is the kind of model which is business-enabled learning is what I would like to propose here. And we can probably later discuss in detail around it. Now there are certain silent blend that we have done to it. So we have started giving more weightage or little more weightage to subjective observations. So remember what I said, that mentor typing, hey Gaurav, you're doing great, you've reached up to this level. That's the kind of weightage. So we've started creating scope for it. And then, the nesting efficacy of an employee. So for example, whether he's doing certain things in time or not, whether how many people in our entire paradigm of new hires or probably a particular set of employees are able to complete an activity. So we are actually gauging that out now. The weightage on the conduct. Earlier the conduct was, the employee used to come into or walk into the office, I know that the guys are coming. But now the conduct is nobody knows. And what we're trying to define is whether I as a manager will go into the system and actually check how many of my employees have checked in. A lot of companies now don't even have that option. Isn't it? So now conduct becomes more important. So are we giving weightage to that? Is something that we've started including. Next is learning impact towards team and organization. Now this is very important, right? So in sales, we to do it, largely guys do it naturally, right? To ye karega, to team wahan pahunchegi, right? But when it comes to the other functions, tech, we're talking about support functions, marketing, everywhere, we'll have to connect our employees towards the entire team cause as well as the organization cause, where we are leading. And re-emphasizing on it time and again is very, very important. I think what we do is we do it once in a while, or maybe in our town halls, once in a month, once in a quarter, sort of town hall arrangements. But then we'll have to start doing it. And this is what I'm talking about. We means the HR enablers. We probably have to get into this mode. Earlier, in terms of personalized learning, we used to have largely, self-paced learning. Personalized learning matlab self-paced learning. So somebody will get onto a system, AI would work on it, as per his pace, he or she is going to get the content, will work on that content, finish it up, get the ranking, get the marks, get the certificates, digital certificates, get those stars or badges. Isn't it? That's what the entire system is happening. But then we lose upon, two very key aspects of personalized learning, which is social as well as peer learning. I believe these are the three pillars, and this is what we have worked upon over the course of time. In 6 to 7 years, last 6 to 7 years, I've extensively spent time in these three pillars. So what does the data say? Data says that 45% of my learning happens quickly when the people are doing it on mobile. It's self-learning. Okay. Now we'll have to, check back whether in our organizations we have mobile learning enabled, and if it is enabled, is it push enabled or not? Okay. Second is social learning. 75% of the folks, eventually largely at a global scale feel that their learnings happen, almost 70% of the times happen socially. When they interact with, they pick up the call, a call to Ankita or Vishesh in their teams, and they call them up, hey, where to find this? Okay? And 85% of the people believe, employees believe that through their PE learnings, they feel more engaged into the business, into their work, as well as they would like to stick to the company 96% more. Right? So all in all, we have been talking about all digital learning, mobile learning, micro learning, gamified learning, micro concepts, a lot of things that are running in there. But where's the human touch? Human touch is still above each and everything altogether. We're talking about we learn from the peers, we learn from our social learnings. So these are the things that we have to imbibe within the systems. Now every organization have different ecosystem, different dynamics at global scale, at probably national scale altogether. But this is something that I've worked extensively for the past 6 years, and this has worked wonders. Our chain of people that get developed very quickly, get promoted quickly, stick to the system quickly, the entire retention gets probably on a higher side. All of these things, the business impact, the initial kickoff productivities, everything, sort of started working on its own. Now there's one more very important thing, which is delivering technical subjects. So, we're talking about Mongos, DBs, we have MongoDB, Kubernetes, Ceph, a lot of things that are happening in the tech domain. Something that we started doing post-pandemic was, we started identifying the key SPOC, because in every tech team, there's a master of that trade. So we picked up that key SPOC, and we picked up one more SPOC which was equally excited to be developed. And what I've observed overall, in tech workforce is very weak at delivery. They're good at doing, but they're weak at delivery. So when you call any tech folk, up on the podium and ask them to run a particular session, they're like, sir, aap PPT banao, aap run kar lo, main aa jaunga, main bata dunga. Right? So we picked up these POCs and we put them into a specific domain group, and then we first trained them on how to deliver, how to create those presentations, micro content, and many things. And then these guys eventually were obviously trained on, all the key necessary technologies. And then we have our labs and everything, MOOCs, which come into the picture, which are learning on the go. But then what difference that it made was that they started running those whole sessions that we were really worried about whether the knowledge is being transferred or not. So they used to pick up a particular knowledge point, they used to run into their teams, and then they used to sort of formalize and run a proper session like a trainer. What a brilliant thing. They started feeling empowered, and they started teaching project-based content altogether. So again, our tech projects started to kick off. Those silos, because all of these guys were put under one particular group, the whole silos after pandemic, we were able to somehow tame it altogether. So largely, if you see, in tech workforce as well, largely learning happens through the social, network as well as the peers. And we all are testimonies of it, isn't it? So this is what largely I had to probably speak about. Let's put, human back into the digital learning space. And how we can do this is by emphasizing more on the social learning, peer learning aspect of the business. Thank you.
Question? One? Yeah, please.
Hi. Really interesting topic and very well shared. A lot of insights. I'm Meera from Kotak Bank. I'd be interested to know what is it that Paytm is doing to honor the topic that you're talking about.
Sorry, you're not audible. If you could be a little louder, please.
Okay. So my question to you is, since you come from Paytm and you're heading L&D there, I'd like to understand or you could share an experience with us or example as to how balance between digital and human interface is what you're managing in Paytm. You could take an example and share with us.
Oh, sure. So, we've stopped shooting across, a lot of content which was actually at a length. What we have done is we've got into something which is called as we've created a core group of all the, let's say, I'll pick up example of the sales vertical. So under sales vertical, we picked up, the middlemen, which are my middle managers. We've picked up these guys. We've created a core group. All the content, everything has been pushed from them. So these are the mentors for my frontline managers. And what has happened right then and there is that during my first initial programs, only during the induction program of any employee, frontline employee coming into the picture, I ensure that my middle managers are there, for interaction. And then they sort of, share their numbers. There's a probably online form that we've created. They put up all the details. They know where to connect, whom to connect. They give us a call. They interact on probably the Slack. We've created those groups all together, and that's how, it immediately kicks off. So it's like a mandate. If somebody doesn't do it, then we get a hold of it. HR enabler comes into the function. So we call them up and sort it out. And this worked. This worked. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Please
Thanks
have
a
a
lot.
huge round of applause for Mr. Gaurav.